Oh boy, Shadow the Hedgehog from 2005. A game I never thought I'd be revisiting again. So I'm going to skip all the pleasantries. Ladies and gentlemen, Shadow 05. Got him. While on the surface, what we are going to be talking about today is indeed Shadow 05. It's a little bit more complex than that. What you see right in front of you is none other than Shadow the Hedgehog Reloaded, a mod for retail Shadow 05 that fixes all of its problems, or most of the problems to the best of its ability. There are also some gameplay overhauls in here that are very much needed. TLDR, the game is actually quite fun now. As fun as Shadow 05 can be anyway. By absolutely no means does this mod make this game good, but it certainly makes it a lot more tolerable. It does feel like you have a little bit more control over Shadow for a start, which we'll be talking about very soon. Now, one thing is for certain in this video, I will not be covering the story and the likes of, because I've technically already covered that, and none of that has changed at all. So if you want my thoughts and opinions on the story of Shadow 05, do check out my Shadow the Hedgehog video from a couple months back. And I know a lot of people might ask, why didn't you play this mod to review Shadow 05 way back then? Because it wouldn't have been a fair reflection on the game at all. The same way as if you were to review retail Sonic 06, but you played Sonic P06 instead of retail 06. Does that make sense? And before any of you also come in here and think that this is going to be a video of me defending Shadow 05, it 100% is not going to be. I class this mod as a completely separate entity. We're talking about Shadow the Hedgehog Reloaded here, not Shadow the Hedgehog from 2005. So without further ado, this is going to be a short and sweet video, but sit back, relax and enjoy as we talk about Shadow the Hedgehog Reloaded. Shadow the Hedgehog Reloaded, developed by Limbless Vector, as we've established, is a mod for Shadow 05. A mod that takes the base game of Shadow 05 and just fine-tunes it a little bit. And it does a little bit more than that. It adds some pretty nice goodies in here. Right off the bat, as soon as you jump into Westopolis, you will notice that Shadow is so much easier to control. While he still feels slippery, he does feel a little bit more planted and a little bit more grounded. His movement doesn't feel anywhere near as unpredictable, which has always been one of my major complaints with Shadow 05, is that when I was playing through that game again, it always felt like Shadow was going to yeetus deletus himself into a bottomless pit at literally every given opportunity.
All of the
Oh,
are collapsing.
you fucking queef. This game I feel confident in playing. Shadow goes exactly where you tell him to go. And yes, it's not perfect. I think there's only so much of the movement that you can fix in this game, but it's nowhere near as panic-inducing as it is in retail Shadow 05. The lightspeed dash has also had an improvement. You can now lightspeed dash into rings while you're in a falling segment like at the beginning of Westopolis. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe you could actually do that in the base game, which I think is a nice feature because it actually speeds up that part of the level. If there's one thing that many people hated about Westopolis, is the fact that you didn't really have any control over Shadow right at the start. Sure, you could move him left, right, up and down while in the falling segment, but it kind of felt pointless because Shadow didn't really move that much. So now that you can lightspeed dash through the rings in this segment, it actually speeds up the stage a little bit more. So if you're into your speedrunning, this is quite a nifty feature. Another problem I had with base Shadow 05's movement was the fact that it felt like Shadow was going slow and fast at the same time. His speed just varied so much, which I think contributed to the inconsistencies with his movement. Here, things seem a little bit more stable. While I know Shadow is technically skating, he doesn't feel like he's on ice anymore. On top of that, the triangle jump in this game has had a complete overhaul. In the base edition of Shadow 05, my main complaint about the triangle jump was that it was just so unresponsive, especially when comparing it to Sonic Heroes' triangle jump. Shadow Reloaded takes the triangle jump from Sonic Heroes and plops it into this game. Plops? Plops! I need to work on my English. But you get the point. It's fast, it's responsive, it feels rewarding and satisfying to use, which, when I do make my Sonic Heroes video, spoiler alert, I love the triangle jump in that game. It is genuinely mind-blowing how they fucked up the triangle jump in base Shadow 05. You had something that worked almost perfectly in Sonic Heroes, and Sonic Team just basically pulled a, no, it's not frustrating enough, let's make it difficult. So I'm honestly glad that we get the Heroes version of the triangle jump in this game, and I'm just so glad that they overhauled it, because now I'm not clenching my arse cheeks every time there's a segment where I can triangle jump. I actually have confidence and belief that I can actually make it to the other side without losing a life. Whereas in base Shadow 05, I was on the brink of an anxiety attack every time I had to use the triangle jump, because there was just no telling if it was going to work or not, and more often than not, it just simply didn't. It's little tweaks here and there like this that just make this game a completely different entity. And on top of that, now that we've got this version of Shadow 05, it just makes you ask so many questions about the development process of Shadow 05, like why they made certain decisions. Listen, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but one thing is for certain, these minute changes were just very much needed. You may also notice that the red star rings have been imported into the game. As I'm sure you all know, they were not a thing in base Shadow 05. And while I'm not a massive collector in video games, I do love the inclusion of them, and I'll tell you why. Because it gives you a reason to explore the levels a bit more, rather than just going from point A to point B. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It adds a little bit more depth to the gameplay, and on top of that, a lot more replayability. Even though, again, like I say, I'm not a massive collector in games, I do still find myself seeing how many I can collect in just one run. It's honestly a really awesome addition. There are some slight graphical changes as well. Maria doesn't look like this. She's had a significant update to her model. Now, I know for some that's probably not a big deal, but if you're a big fan of your retinas like myself, I think stuff like this goes a very long way. And speaking of graphical overhauls as well, a lot of people know about the infamous bloom effect that Shadow 05 has. That has been toned back to all hell. Whenever I'm playing through some of the more colourful stages, I no longer feel like I'm getting flashbanged. Flashbang. Like, I don't mind a little bit of bloom in my video games, that's absolutely fine, but jeez Louise. When they were developing Shadow 05, they must have dialed it up to 12. Not 11, 12. The bloom effect in base Shadow 05 was absolutely nuts. I just want you guys to keep in mind that when I was playing through Shadow 05 again for the video, I spent a lot of the time playing in the dark, because when it gets to a certain time of night, I kind of like to do that. For immersion reasons, I suppose. Yeah, Shadow 05 was a bit harsh on the retinas. However, one thing that hasn't had any changes at all, at least not to my knowledge, is the story. Yeah, the story's still the same, the dialogue's still the same, etc, etc. It's all there. However, on the flip side, you don't have to sit through the game God knows how many times to unlock the last story. You only have to complete this game 3 times to unlock the last story. That's it. And if your run averages about half an hour per run, you're talking about an hour and a half to unlock the last story. Not however long it takes in base Shadow 05, which is an amazing thing, by the way. I'm not gonna lie, guys, especially when I was replaying through the game again for the first time in God knows how long, I got to my 5th run, and at that point, I had already had enough. So the fact that you only have to complete the game 3 times and get 3 different endings to unlock the true ending is absolutely fantastic. Now, I know it's common in the Sonic games with last stories to have to play through multiple campaigns to unlock the true ending, but my god, with Shadow 05, they took the ever-living piss. So the fact that Shadow Reloaded takes a more normal approach to this kind of structure, it goes a long way. And just like in base Shadow 05, once you complete the last story, you do unlock Expert Mode. Now, from what I've heard, Expert Mode has been tweaked slightly in this version of the game. However, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to confirm that, because I'll be honest with you, I've not really played through Expert Mode in base Shadow 05, so I don't really have anything to compare it to. But again, for you people who like a little bit of challenge, you don't have to complete this game 10 or more times just to unlock this mode. I also forgot to mention that this game does include full widescreen support, and for the most part, the graphical fidelity doesn't suffer all that much. At least it didn't on my end. I mean, let's not forget, this game was originally from 2005. All in all, Shadow Reloaded is the definitive way to play Shadow 05. And like I said at the start of the video, by no means does Shadow Reloaded change my opinion of Shadow 05. I still think that the base edition of Shadow 05 is still a pretty bad game, but this mod does give the original game much needed TLC. No, not tables, ladders and chairs, but basically it gives the game a glow up. All in all, Shadow Reloaded is quite a fun mod to play. However, one thing I can definitely recommend is play Shadow 05 first, without the mod, because that way you can truly come to appreciate just how much Shadow Reloaded actually does. And listen, I know there's people who watch my content who like Shadow 05, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you like the base edition of Shadow 05, then power to you. But if you're someone who really didn't like the base edition of Shadow 05, this mod is an absolute must. Because as we've established in this video, not only does Shadow Reloaded take the game and tweak it, build upon it and improve upon it, but it also adds some pretty welcome features that just simply weren't in the base game. I won't lie guys, I still find myself playing this mod from time to time, and I can have fun with it. That, my friends, was Shadow the Hedgehog Reloaded. I know this video was short and sweet, but that was kind of the point. As you all know, I've been a very busy boy lately. But one thing is for certain, I knew I had to talk about this mod the moment I played it, hence why you've just watched a video of me blabbering on about how good this mod is. I think it goes without saying, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your continued support of the channel. More content will be on the way very soon. Until next time, everyone. Adios.